6 years ago, I was completely convinced that I was destined to hate working until I either died or retired, whichever came first. And fast forward to now, not only am I genuinely happy to sit down and do the work that I have to do every day, but I also, for the first time, am genuinely enjoying the journey of growth and working towards accomplishments rather than just wanting to get to the accomplishments on the other side. So in this video, I want to talk about the steps that I used to get here, plus some strategies that you can use if you feel like you're in a career rut. And if you let me, I might just have some homework assignments for you that you can use to get started. So if you're watching this, my guess is that you want to make some sort of change. Like maybe you're really burned out and you don't know how to slow down, or you're really frustrated and you don't know where to turn, or you are just so miserable in a toxic environment that you can't figure out how to escape. Or maybe you just feel nothing. You feel a little bit empty. Your career feels really passive and you're kind of looking around and wondering if this is all there really is. If this sounds like you, I know we are going to have a lot to chat about, and I would love to have you subscribe and stick around. And if you like this topic specifically, definitely like that video. It lets me know to keep making videos like this and exploring these issues. So my story starts back in college when I decided that I was going to study accounting. And I made this decision kind of on a whim, mostly because my school didn't have a business degree. And by the time I picked a major, I was having way too much fun to even consider transferring. An accounting degree turned into an internship, which turned into a full-time job offer, which turned into me starting my career out of college at the Big Four in San Francisco and absolutely hating it. I had certainly fallen victim to this path of just climbing forward linearly, which I'm sure so many people have experience with. But for my entire academic career, I had just focused on putting one foot in front of the other. And I never had much of an opportunity or the forethought or wherewithal really to pause and consider what I was genuinely interested in or genuinely wanting to do. So in that first job, showing back up to my parents' house at the end of the day in tears, I convinced myself that being miserable in a job was just part of adulting. That was just the price we had to pay to live a comfy adult lifestyle and earn a good income. But if you know me, you know that I am incredibly stubborn and I don't really take things at face value. So I refused to accept it. But the problem was I had no idea where else to go. This was the first point in my career where I realized I had this career autonomy. I could make decisions. Nobody was making them for me anymore, but I felt like I had no idea what was out there. I had no idea of the different options available to me, what I could even be qualified for, how I would even start to go about making a change. And it was terrifying. This was the first point where it was up for me to decide, and I felt like I had no options. I completely felt stuck. Now, after many years working in the recruiting and hiring world and seeing other people's careers unfold, and after doing a lot of internal work trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what I cared about, and a lot of external work trying to actually push my career in different directions and pivot, I've come to realize that being stuck is not about having a lack of choices. Being stuck is about having a lack of ideas. So if you feel like you're at a point where you are at a loss for ideas right now, here's an exercise you can try. This is called the Possible Lives exercise, and it's from a great book called Designing Your Life. I'll link it in the caption. So the first step in this exercise is to set a timer for 3 minutes, grab a piece of paper or a Google Doc, and brain dump a list of all different topics, items, whatever it is, things you're interested in, things you're curious about, things that you just enjoy in your life for fun. List everything, whether or not they are practical or career related. Step 2, after that timer is done, take your list and plug it either into Claude or ChatGPT. My personal preference is Claude. I feel like she just really gets me. And ask it to analyze that list for any overarching themes or through lines that pop out. Step 3, based on these themes, identify 3 different potential 5-year plans or career paths that you could follow and write them out. If you're already in a career path that you want to stay on, but you're still trying to kind of work out what it looks like in the long term, make those 3 different 5-year plans something that chart out from where you are now. So step 4, for each possible life, take some time and either journal on or like briefly sketch out all of the details. Think about how you'd spend your day to day. Where would you be living? Who would you be working with? What kind of projects would you be working on? And for each 5-year plan, map out the big actions and like milestones or achievements you would picture yourself getting each year. The more detailed when you do this, the better. Step 5, once you're done mapping out each path, spend some time reflecting and gauge how you feel about each vision. Like, are any of them particularly exciting? Do any of them feel coherent or incoherent with you, your values, and the goals that you already have? And step 6, another reflection exercise, is to think about any common themes that arose in this exercise, maybe from the topics that you brain dumped onto that page or the kind of day-to-day details that you mapped out. Like, were there any recurring things or qualities or truths that can tell you anything about yourself and what you might like? So after about a year in that accounting job, I couldn't handle it anymore, and I moved into a new job, mostly out of desperation, if we're being frank. In retrospect, that's not the smartest way to go about making a career change, but I was at a point where I just needed to get out and start trying something different. I moved into a role as an executive recruiter working with Silicon Valley startups. I was getting on the phones, recruiting executives myself, and having these conversations with them about their paths and goals. And for the first time, I realized that was work that I actually enjoyed doing. Like, I would wrap up my day on some of these phone calls and want to go just talk to somebody about all that I had learned. I felt so excited helping them get to where they wanted to go. And it was like this light bulb moment of, there's good work for me out there. I just have to go find it. Now, years later, after I've done a lot more of this exploring, I can look back and recognize that your day-to-day experience in a job, how you feel, how energized you are, how engaged you are, that is your best compass to map out your career path and decide where you want to go. So there's another exercise from the book Designing Your Life that can be a great way to start to uncover some of those tasks that really do resonate with you and the ones that you should try and stay away from as much as possible. It's called the Good Time Journal. And the premise is that for about 2 to 3 weeks, you log every single task that you do during the day. This could be like actual projects you're in charge of completing, but this could also be meetings that you're involved in, or, processes you need to run, or people that you interact with. And you will win extra brownie points from me if you do this both for your work activities and also things outside of work. As you keep this journal, the second step is, for each activity, rate your engagement level on a scale of 1 to 10. So a score of 1 might be you're feeling really bored, you feel restless during it, you were procrastinating on it before you started, you just find yourself dreading it and it feels like pulling teeth. A scale of 10, on the other hand, is time stands still when you're doing it. You get so absorbed, you enter a flow state. You could do it for hours and hours on end, and the time would just fly by. And the third step is to also rate your level of energy. So very similarly, a level 1 is something that just makes you feel totally drained. You're mustering up everything in you to get it done. And at the end, you feel like you just need to go couch rock for the rest of the night. And a score of 10 is maybe along the lines of how I felt when I was finally getting on the phones in that recruiting role, finishing up a task with more energy than you even started with. So step 4, at the end of each day or week, whatever you feel like is realistic, reflect on all of the activities as a whole and try and identify if any themes arise. And again, I love using AI for these kind of analysis tasks, but you can also use the AEIOU method to try and suss out if there are any themes. So A is for the activities that you did. What were the specific tasks that you were responsible for? E is the environments that you were in. Did you go to a physical office? Were you working from home? I is the interactions that you had. Were you talking to clients? Were you talking to team members? Were you talking to leaders versus entry-level people? O is the objects that you use, maybe physical objects. You have a manual job, or it could be tools or system, software that you had to interact with. And you are the users, or who else was involved in completing that activity. And so the idea with this exercise is that it'll start to reveal the tasks, the environments, the different structures that make you feel the best day to day. And then you can use that to start to guide your career in a direction that fits better for you. So after a little over a year in that recruiting job, I was feeling pretty good. It was definitely a much better fit than that accounting role had been. I really had my footing under me. I was a top performer. I had gotten promoted and I had moved into a role with responsibilities that felt so much better from where I had started. Like the job was better, but I definitely knew that it wasn't the best fit for me in a lot of ways. Like it wasn't intellectually stimulating me in the way that I really wanted to. It was repetitive in ways that I was not happy with. And I just knew that there was going to be more. And then we entered the year 2020 and this little thing called COVID took the world by storm and I completely spiraled. But there still felt like something was missing and I no longer had this band-aid of social activity and work-life balance to cover it up. And all I could dwell on, all I could focus on was how badly I felt about work and how directionless I felt in my career. And with all of this free time suddenly on my hands, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to start dedicating several hours per week to just exploring and starting to put effort towards figuring out what it was that I wanted to do. This was really hard when I still felt like I had no freaking clue. And so, I reflected on my childhood and the truths that I knew about myself. And one thing that kept coming up over and over again is that I've always been a creative person and I've always been really drawn to creative pursuits. And so if I didn't know anything else about myself, at least I could hold on to that. And so I started to explore, what jobs are out there that can allow me to leverage this creativity. A very obvious option that popped up was marketing. And so I ended up spending about 6 months exploring everything I possibly could. So the more I researched about marketing, the more I was pleasantly surprised to find that I was intellectually curious about it. I wanted to keep learning more. I could nerd out on podcasts about the strategies. And that was the first point where I really started to just let my curiosity lead and follow what I was naturally being drawn to. And it was the first point where I started to realize that exploration and exposure was the best strategy I could use to start to get myself unstuck. As I dove deeper into the world of marketing, it became very clear to me that if I wanted to be considered for a marketing job and I wanted to successfully be able to pivot and get hired, I had some serious skill gaps I needed to close. So if you are also thinking of a career pivot and wanting to make a move like this, here are the actions I would recommend you take. The first step is definitely to go through those reflection exercises and start to identify at least a high-level goal, even if you don't know the details. The second is to absolutely let your curiosity lead and use research and networking to start to color in the map of different paths you could potentially take. I leaned incredibly heavily on informational interviewing and networking with people in different roles of marketing, trying to ask them questions about their day-to-day, the skills and strengths they needed to have in order to be successful in that role. And I started really trying to put myself in their shoes to picture if that was something I'd want to spend my time doing. Third is that there's a big difference between learning theoretically and learning technically. Learning theoretically, reading blogs, listening to podcasts, reading books about your area of interest is a great way to start to build those foundations. But there are many roles, especially knowledge worker roles, where you can start to build hands-on experience without actually having a full-time job. So in order to get that marketing experience, I spent a few of that 6-month exploration period working on a go-to-market project, a go-to-market plan for a sort of fictional company that never actually ended up getting launched. But I went through all of the marketing tactics that I would do in a real job. I built personas, I did customer research, we sent out real surveys, I built out a marketing plan, I built out the messaging hierarchy. A, so I could have experience to put on my resume, which I did and which helped me get hired. And B, so I could start to assess if I actually enjoyed the tactical experience of doing the work. As a side, Coursera is a great resource for people in the knowledge industry to build professional skills and get that hands-on experience. This is not sponsored, but I do have an affiliate code with them. I've worked with them in the past. I'll drop that in the description. I believe at the time of filming this video, they're offering 30% off Coursera Plus. So after spending about 6 months just absolutely inhaling marketing information, I ended up landing a marketing job in 2021 by leveraging my past experience as a strength. I found a company that was looking to hire a marketer specifically with a recruiting background into a hybrid recruitment marketing role. And I absolutely hounded the hiring manager. I reached out with like a short blurb about why I was the perfect fit because I had this unique experience. I had these motivations and goals to pivot into marketing and force them to take an interview with me. And I felt like I had made it. I was so proud of myself. I had wanted to get into marketing for so long. Like I was even thinking of marketing back when I was in that accounting role. But then I pretty quickly got frustrated in this new role when I realized that a good majority of it was the recruiting work that I didn't like and not the marketing work that I wanted to do. And once again, I felt stuck. But this time, instead of like grinding to go out and find a new job, I instead worked on pivoting internally to try and get exposure to and get involved with other areas of marketing that match more closely with what I wanted to do. Interestingly enough, this was the first company I had been at where everybody had a different role. Like when I was in professional services, for the most part, everybody was kind of doing a really similar role, which helped me realize that like, I don't necessarily have to be bound by the strict requirements of my job description. There were all sorts of different projects and responsibilities for me to get involved in. You know, you look around any company and everybody probably needs help with one thing or another. So as long as I could tie different projects back to company goals and articulate why it was important for me to work on it, I started to find this wiggle room to shape my job into something that I liked a lot better. Hands down, the best thing that I've ever done for my career was stepping outside of my comfort zone, taking calculated risks, trying things on just for the sake of exploring and building new experiences, because I have finally reached a point in my career where I enjoy what I'm doing for the growth that I am gaining from it rather than just the achievement that I hope to get on the other end. So near the end of 2022, I started dabbling on this little app called TikTok, sharing what I had learned in my years of experience as a recruiter, in my recruitment marketing role, working for a recruiting platform company. And that came at a time where the economy was tanking, layoffs were happening in the thousands, and people were really, really desperate for this kind of information and this kind of support. And I never, ever, ever would have gotten the opportunity that I have now, like being able to do content creation and career education full time, had it not been for all the discovery work that I did early in my career. I used to beat myself up for having what I considered a messy background, like all of these disparate experiences that didn't really connect to each other on paper. And I would have sworn that it was doing me no favors in the recruiting process. But it was that flexibility, that openness to exploring new ideas and making changes that over time have added up to this really unique portfolio of experiences that makes me one of one. When I got hired into that marketing job, I was the perfect candidate because I had a background in recruiting, but I wanted to pivot into marketing. And when I started in content creation, it really resonated with people because I had enough of the marketing expertise to understand how to build a social media brand, but I had that industry knowledge of recruiting so that I could really show up and support people the way they needed it. And because of all the changes I made and all that grueling effort I put in, I have a much better idea of the work that I actually enjoy doing. Like I know what kind of topics I'm drawn to and intellectually curious about, and I have built a much clearer vision of the direction I want my career to grow. When I quit that first accounting job about a year after I had graduated college, one of the accounting firm partners told me that I was making a horrible mistake and effectively that I was not going to amount to anything in my career. And I am so happy that he was wrong. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. It truly means the world, especially as I am working on building out this YouTube channel and just digging deeper into a lot of the topics that I know you guys care about. So if you need more tips, tricks, tools, strategies, definitely follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I am posting there nearly every day with tons of little bite-sized nuggets that I know you guys will find helpful. And if you feel like you are struggling with career growth and burnout, be sure to check out this video. And remember, what matters is that you're trying. Keep going. I'm proud of you.